We are Americans, and we are going to win.
Are you pretty fed up? The old conservative movement can't come to the phone right now. The same lie is being fed to women today, that you must be like a man to be successful.
Modern feminism is literally the worst deal ever. I want out.
The left, they couldn't fill up 2,500 women in a room because they can't tell you what a woman is.
It's true. Men built the world, but women raised it.
We are the ones who have decided that the old way of doing things is dead. We are not the same conservative women anymore.
I'm thrilled to be back with the young, proud, and energetic patriots of Turning Point.
5,000 young conservative students in a room together saying, I love America. I'm willing to do something about it.
This is what freedom feels like! This is what freedom looks like!
If you're willing to speak the truth, they will attack you.
They are the invading force. They're the ones that have taken over our institutions.
But in times like these, it's not enough to just be right on the issues. You've got to be willing to stand up when it's not easy.
You are the generation that is going to stand up and save American freedom. We are one movement, one people, one family, and one glorious American nation.
Trouble ain't no fire. Let's reach out to something higher. Ain't no life outside each other. We are not alone. Through trouble ain't no fire. Let's reach out to something higher. Eyes open to one another. We are not alone. Through trouble ain't no fire. Let's reach out to something higher. Ain't no life outside each other. We are not alone. Through trouble ain't no fire. Let's reach out to something higher. Eyes open to one another. We are not alone. No man is an island we can be found. No man is an island, just let your guard down.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much to all of you for coming out tonight. Our chapter here at school has been blown away by the response from the community for this event. So many people have been so kind and amazing, and we'd like to thank the Turning Point staff for helping us grow our chapter and plan this event. You all have been there for us week in and week out. Y'all have been so supportive of our chapter here and have helped us grow to what we are today, willing to work with us and support us in our ambitious goals. And most of all, thank you to the Turning Point USA for supporting our chapter and giving us the resources and training to pull off an event this size. If you are interested in starting a chapter at your high school, please check out the Turning Point USA table at this event or go to tpusa.com/getinvolved. We would love to help you get plugged in. Thank you all for joining us tonight, and we will get started in a moment.
Welcome to Turning Point USA's proudly hosted 2023 event, the Made in America Tour. Joining us on stage tonight, Morgan McMichael, Stephen Davis, and Anthony Watson. Let's get this started.
What's up, North Carolina?
What's going on, everybody? How y'all doing today?
Who's
Y'all
excited?
doing all right? Yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
I'm hype. Are y'all hype? Because I'm hype.
Way to bring it down, Morgan. Let's bring it back up. What's happening in North Carolina? That's what I like to hear. Thank you from the bottom of our hearts for hosting this event, for all of you young people taking a stand in your high schools, a stand in your communities to be the next generation of leaders that aren't going to keep America not only free, but spiritually free. It begins there. And once you lose it there, you find yourself in the mess that we're in right now, where you can't even do basic things like define what a woman is, or what a boy is, or putting urinals in female bathrooms. All of these things that make adults uncomfortable to hear are now the reality that you find in elementary schools. And to the generation that is here among us right now, and it's up to you guys, because this is the last stand for America. Because if we lose this country, where do we go? That has to be the mindset that you start every single mission, every single thing with, is that if we lose this, then what happens? Because that's what's at stake right here. And everyone's downplaying it, because the ones that want to make you look the other way and say other things that are different are the ones that are benefiting from it behind the table. But let me say this clear, because I know a lot of places that we go, a lot of people are repeating the same old liberal nonsense that I hate hearing. We are not a democracy. We are a republic. It's in your pledge that they've now taken out of schools. And to the what? For which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And when we go back to putting God above everything, it is then and only then that we will be one nation, under God, indivisible, unbreakable, with liberty for everybody and justice for everybody by God's standards. Because nobody gets away from God when you do something against him. My name is Anthony Watson. Just want to take some time to introduce myself before we open this up. I'm a 2018 Winter Olympian who literally lost my identity about 2.5 years ago, because I was somebody that was raised in a 2-parent household in the middle of the ghetto in New Jersey. Shout out to the East Coasters. I live in the hot state of hot Zona, or whatever, hot Arizona. Oh gosh, it's weird, but I get a tan every day. So it works. So at that point in my life, what had happened in my life was that was at the pinnacle of George Floyd, all the BLM stuff that was happening, all of that race-baiting stuff that everyone was looking at me sideways and saying, like, well, you're black, aren't you supposed to think this and do that? But I was raised by my parents to not see color. I was raised to do things Martin Luther King's way, to live in a way that you want people to remember you for, not what you want to be seen as. And so I didn't post a black square. I didn't do the whole BLM marches. I thought it was a whole bunch of hogwash that you're going to convince people to go burn up their neighborhoods and then go send them right back in there to live in them once they've all created that mayhem. And so for me, I started asking questions, and we know in the world that we live in today, when you ask questions, you get a swift slap of shut up that follows it. So I had lost all of my sponsors. I had been blacklisted from any kind of Olympic competition. And so I kind of lost myself in that season for about 6 months, where I just felt like I had nothing to live for. And so what brought me back to my center was, one, my faith, because I'm a Christian first, I'm a conservative second. I live by God's standards, and then I let everything else fall where it will. And that's where you've got to be as young individuals. And so what happened after that was I took a trip. I took a trip to my very first Turning Point event, where I got to see these two people. You know, I was sitting where you guys were watching this man give a speech on the stage. And so what I tell people now is that if you want a place to influence, it's got to be some place that you've been or some place that you're willing to go. You've got way too many people nowadays that want the spotlight without the responsibility that comes with it. And then they want to run as soon as they get a little headache, or they're always trying to explain themselves out of situations when they should just be quiet. But 2 years ago, Stephen Davis, this guy, I'm his before photo, was speaking with such conviction from the stage, and he gave a call to men, saying that the next generation of men need to be fearless leaders, and he said, anyone that wants to take that call, stand up. He couldn't see me because he always wears shades, and it was dark, and I was all the way in the back. But I stood up, and I worked my butt off to get to where I am now, doing something for the sake of making sure that you guys, if you are confused, if you don't know, at least have the opportunity to ask and have your questions met. But it's because of somebody's consistency, somebody's message that they were willing to stand in the fire and take as they were giving it, that ensued something in me, that brought something in me to actually get up now and do the same thing for other people. That's influence. That's real influence. And you have so many people nowadays that want to be affluential. They want a spotlight and they want a stage because of the monetary gain or the attention that it brings them, but very few people that want to be influential. The ones that stand here, no matter what they get in return, no matter what the stakes are, no matter what the cost is or the sacrifice that they have to give up, just for the sake of wanting to encourage somebody else. And that's how I met this young lady here. So what I can say from the bottom of my heart about both of these guys is I would do anything for these people. And the only advice that I have for you guys is that team up. It's a dark world out there, and you can't do it all by yourself. You need your community. You need your family. You need your friends. And don't compete with one another. There is not a day that goes by that we're here sitting up here trying to outdo the other one. We work hard individually, and that challenges all of us to make sure that we're always on our A game. So that's a little bit about myself. Thank you guys for having me here. I'll toss it over to you to get it going.
I don't know how I'm going to follow up that because he just hit, every point that there is. I love these two guys, though. It is so cool that we get to talk about why we love America, why we're still fighting for our freedoms to you guys. So this is really awesome. And I am just always so encouraged by how many young people, all of you guys are in high school, middle school? That's insane because when I was in high school, if there was an event like this, I would be scared to go. And so just know that if there are peers out there, if your parents don't like what we're talking about, just look around you because these are your sphere of influence. These are the people that are going to have your back no matter what, and they're the ones to lean on when you need it, because I know that is the hardest thing in high school and middle school, even in college, is finding your community. That's the number one thing that's important. And then all of that under God, because we know that we can do all things through him who strengthens us, or who strengthens me. But hi, I'm Morgan. I am a woman, XX chromosomes, in case you didn't know. And I am really happy that I'm here. So I went to college in Texas, grew up in liberal California, and was canceled by all of my peers, by my teachers. I had a very leftist growing up in the public school system, and I escaped to Texas for college, and then was canceled again in my sorority, was almost kicked out of my sorority, and I was studying to be an engineer, and I was sitting at a Turning Point event similar to Anthony, and I looked on stage and I was like, I can't stand this anymore because I don't want to see my kids raised in an America that they hate. I don't want to see that. I want to love my country, and I do love my country, but what is going to happen if my kids go to school and they're taught, instead of one nation under God, one nation under them? What if they're pledging the allegiance to a flag that we don't like? And I thought that that was ridiculous. Why are American flags being ripped out of high school classrooms? That's not American. That is anti-American. Students now are taught all around the country to hate their country, to hate the founding fathers because they're white supremacists, which is not true. We all know that. And so that is why I do what I do every single day, is to fight for our future, because I'm a Gen Z. I'm not old. I'm only 23. So
What are you saying?
I'm a Gen Z.
You just had to throw, I'm not old. I was like,
y'all are millennials. That's okay. We love you.
It's a safe way to tell how old we are.
You're still young at heart. But this is why we do what we do, because it's not just my generation, it's our generation. And without freedom fighters like you guys, our country will be doomed. But that's why you guys are the future. You guys are the change makers. We are the change makers. And that's why we need to save our country and keep America, America. Because I don't want to see an America that's not real. Yeah? That's me.
How are we doing today? That's the excitement I want to see right there. That's what I'm talking about. But my name is Stephen Davis. My past is a little different from them because I am a former liberal, okay? So I was a typical left-leaning liberal who believed all about race and, you know, it's always the white man's fault, and I blamed everything on the white man and worshiped my skin color as my God instead of who is really God, okay? Which typically happens within the black community, it seems, that we worship our skin color. Thou shalt not have any other gods before me, but yet and still we worship our skin color as God. Self-describing Christians do this. But anyways, that's what I used to do, unfortunately, and it got to the point in 2017, 2018, where I was like, you know what? All this hoopla about this guy named Trump. I'm finally ready to get into the realm of politics. I'm finally ready to understand what's going on here. Now, mind you, up until this time, I liked this guy named Trump. Right, you know, WWE, you know, he came down, fought Vince McMahon, did the ground and pound and everything, the battle of the billionaires. Everyone loved it. Black people, white people, all different colors and creeds loved it. But yet and still, when it came down to escalator as of the right, now all of a sudden it's a problem. And I fell right into it. I listened to the news media, did everything that they said. I was in lockstep with everything that they espoused, okay? Then it got to the point, like I said, 2017, 2018, I was like, okay, there's this guy named Trump. I can't stand him because I was told not to. I can't stand him because I was told that he's a racist, sexist, bigot, homophobe, transphobe, xenophobe, you know, the whole trope. You know what? I'm going to do my research, and I'm going to beat every single Trump supporter down with facts, and it's going to be glorious. Ended up red pilling myself. It happens. It happens. Because when you do your research, when you learn for yourself, instead of listening to what other people want you to know, you come to realize what the truth is and what the truth is not. And that's something I oftentimes want to get people to understand, especially in this day and age, where there's a lot of misinformation and disinformation. You have to learn for yourself. You have to do your own research. You have to delve into what is. The Bible says, study to show yourself approved. Come on now, huh? We in church, so we gonna have church today, boy. I try to tell you, okay? Study to show yourself approved, but a lot of times in this day and age, that does not happen, okay? We are not studying to show ourselves approved. As a matter of fact, we'd rather get spoon-fed lies from the media, MSNBC and CNN. We'd rather be spoon-fed a bunch of lies, manipulation, and deceit just to make ourselves feel better. The Bible talks about itching ears, saying what the itching ears, telling people what they want to hear, okay? And that's what's happening in this day and age. We want to be affirmed in our sin. That's what we want. We don't want to do as the Bible tells us. We want people to affirm us in the wrong that we're doing. So it's important to me, for me at least, to combat not only the news media because they dupe me, but go against this racial ideology that's pervasive in this day and age, especially when it comes to CRT, which we know it's in y'all high schools, okay? We understand that. So I like to go up against the racial narrative. I like to go up against the news media, but I also like to encourage men, okay? Because in this day and age, look, at the end of the day, we are the front line, the front line of defense and the last line of defense when it comes to this daggone country. And as our country falls, we have to look to us men and see we are the reason why our country is failing. It's because we are refusing to take the stand that we're supposed to when it comes to our daggone country. We're so scared. We don't want people to make fun of us. We don't want to, we don't want to catch the smoke. We don't want to catch the flack. I want the smoke. Give me the smoke. Because at the end of the day, that's what we're supposed to do as men. We're supposed to be on the daggone front lines of things. We're supposed to be taking this, all right? What's that? Can you just stand up real quick? Make men men again. That's what we need, to make men men again. So that's my message to every young man here. Be a man. Daggone, beat your daggone chest when it comes to standing up for what you know to be right. You stand up for on the courage of your daggone convictions, and you fight, not only when it comes to this country, but when it comes to spiritually as well, because this is spiritual warfare, baby. At the end of the day, this is spiritual warfare. Our country is falling because of our lack of spirituality, right? John Adams, our second president, said that the Constitution is made only for a moral and religious people, and it is wholly inadequate to the government of any other. And why are we failing? Because we're becoming more and more immoral and irreligious. So we got to get back to God, baby. That's number one, first and foremost. Let's go.
Well, thank you all for coming. That was it. And just kidding.
It was a joke, April Fools.
So, Stephen, you always like to call out us guys, and even though I've heard this, I always feel like you're picking on me. But you have a method for these men to follow. Talk about that for a few seconds.
Oh, my. Can I get a few minutes on this one, if you don't mind?
Sure.
Okay. So there are 5 things to be a great man, okay? 1, you have to be godly, okay? The Bible says, trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not into your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge him, and he will direct thy paths. Be not wise in your own eyes. Fear the Lord and shun evil. That's what we are called to do, right? We're not supposed to go with the status quo. We're not supposed to go with our pride and live out our own lives. We're supposed to do what God wants us to do. We're supposed to walk in his footsteps, not our own, okay? So you got to recognize where your strength comes from, men. Number 2, you have to be protective. And I call this the 3-4 rule, okay? 3-4. Okay, so you have to be protective, right? You have to defend and sacrifice. Protect, defend, and sacrifice. For who? Women, children, the vulnerable, and the innocent, okay? That's what we are called to do as men, all right? So we have to be protective. We have to stand up for what we know to be right. We have to protect our women, which are, they're trying to say that when it comes to transgenderism or those who identify as transgender, they're trying to say that they can be women. They can co-opt womanhood. So womanhood is null and void. No, we have to stand against that. When it comes to our children and sexualizing and indoctrinating our children, we have to stand against that as well, okay? And when it comes to the vulnerable, well, yes, that's a who, but also that's a what, because our country is vulnerable at this point in time. Our country is faltering as we speak. So number 3, I would say we have to be disciplined. We have to be strong. We have to be robust as men, but we have to be disciplined, okay? We have to stand on the courage of our convictions and know what is right and stand for what we know to be right. We have to stand on our purpose. As men, we all have a purpose that we're supposed to fulfill. And if you get off of your purpose, what was that one guy? Samson, who got off of his purpose and started messing around with some of these
legs.
A woman, a very promiscuous
that works
woman.
too. Real women.
Yeah. Delilah was not the type of woman he should have been messing with, okay? But yet and still, he did that anyway, got off of his purpose, wasn't disciplined, and messed around with the wrong chick, had his eyes put out, okay? That sucks. I don't know about y'all, but I ain't trying to have my eyes put out because of some woman, okay? It ain't worth it. I like my eyes. I like seeing, okay? So you have to stay disciplined. Stay on your purpose. Be purpose-driven. Number 4, you have to be strong. Oh, goodness gracious, you have to be strong. At the end of the day, you have to enhance your mind, you have to enhance your body, you have to enhance yourself financially, emotionally, and definitely spiritually, okay? So any way that the enemy or any enemy of you comes at you, you can handle yourself properly. And you have to be tough, number 5. You have to be tough. You have to be able to stand on the courage of your convictions and take the slings and arrows that's going to come after you and come at you. You have to stand strong. You have to stand tall, especially in this day and age where they want you to get on your knees instead of living with purpose. I'm sorry. You can't get me on my knees to be able to go along with the status quo. It ain't happening.
Well, once they get you down, you can't get up.
This is very true. I have bad knees. So, but you have to make sure you're godly as men. You have to make sure that you are protective. You have to make sure you are disciplined. You have to make sure you are strong, and you have to make sure you are tough. And as men, if we do this as men, you better believe we can start getting our country back. We can start getting people back on track, and you better believe we can lead ourselves into a proper and godly future.
Amen. What about the ladies?
Yeah, well, I was getting to that. You see, that's the speech that I got 2 years ago. So Stephen took me to the emotional woodshed, and, you know, he whooped me into shape. But look, man, I looked at you as a fan from way back then, and now I get to sit on stage with you as a friend. So I'm really excited for that. But you raised a good question, because now that's how the men are supposed to be. What about the girls?
What about the ladies?
Like,
there's
there's
a lot of
so
ladies
many
in
ladies here tonight.
Yeah, so
Oh, yeah, they weren't like,
That's her department.
that's my department.
That's her department.
They're not the ladies.
I mean, if I
Sorry, you're
wanted
not
to be.
invited. YWLS is for us girls. I know you want to come. But anyways, ladies, there is an attack on feminism right now. I don't know if you've seen all over TikTok, all over social media. The left can't even tell us what a woman is. Well, a woman is somebody who's biologically XX. That's why I hate saying biological women, because at the end of the day, we are women. Point blank, period, that is it. And if there's one place in the Bible to turn to, thank you, it is Proverbs 31, and that shows us how to be a biblical woman. And that is what society lacks right now more than anything, is absolute truth. And so my number one thing for you ladies is it's okay to be feminine, okay? Don't feel like what the media is showing is what's right, because it's not. Okay, it's okay to be feminine. It's okay to be a woman. It's okay to be proud and loud about that, because if we're not going to do it, they're going to erase it. I don't know if you guys have seen this week, Dylan Mulvaney has garnered new sponsorships. My sister was texting me and said, yeah, that fake woman. And it's true. That's what these people are out in society. They're taking the place of women in these brand sponsorships. They're taking the place of women everywhere in every single facet. And at this point, men are being better women than women are. And if that doesn't scare you, it should.
Well, if you look at them, that should scare you too.
You're not wrong there, too. So, ladies, I just want to let you know that, you know, embrace who you are as a woman. I think that's the number one thing that we lack more than ever, is just being able to be feminine. Don't buy into the lies that are sold by these women's marches, by these feminist movements. This fourth wave feminism is not the feminism that got us the right to vote, okay? This fourth wave feminism is a lie. It is a lie that LGBTQ plus IA alphabet mafia agenda is womanhood. That is not womanhood. I hate to break it to you, okay? It's the lie that transgenderism is womanhood. It's the lie that pro-abortion rhetoric is womanhood. Abortion is the most anti-woman thing that a woman could do. So why are we being sold this lie every single day that the best thing that a woman could do is have an abortion and continue to climb the corporate ladder? Well, that is just a lie that we have been sold, okay, year after year, that us as women, all we're good for is the corporate world, to be a boss babe. That sounds toxic. I don't know about you, but I don't want to be a boss babe until I'm 60 years old at some corporation who hates me and will pay for me to get an abortion. I would rather be a boss babe in my home with my 3, 4, 5, 6 beautiful children, raising the next generation so that they can go and stand up for their country and ask their country not what they can do for them, but what I can do for my country. That is America, and that's what feminism is. Anthony, what does it mean to be a man?
Well, Stephen already covered that. But half of these girls that do all of that stuff, man, I don't even pay attention to the feminist movement anymore. You can't look me in the face when you got a mask on and you smell like the dandruff and you got blue-colored hair and you don't shave and you, oh, God. I was like, if that's womanhood, no thank you.
Womanhood is also shaving your legs and armpits, by the way.
Yeah, take care of yourselves, you know? It's just like
hygiene.
Half of the battle nowadays, especially for young people nowadays, it's all about this idea of self-love. And the area that I'm so passionate about is bringing God back into all of these communities and whatnot. You have Ichabod. When you look in the Bible, what that name means is that God has left this place. Spiritually written on government houses everywhere, the White House, you know, courts and all these other places, and you have people blaming it on that lie of, oh, it's systemically racist. I'm just like, first of all, a system is inanimate until you put a racist person inside of there. I was like, but going a little step further, Black people can be racist too. Asian people can be racist too. And let me tell you something. That is not a whole black and white issue like we have made it all over the world to excuse black people, to excuse all these other races as when they're doing such heinous crimes to their own kind. Because I can tell you firsthand, me and Steven, we get rejected more and treated like Klan victims from the black community. You wanna know how many times we've been called white man slave?
Coon, Uncle Tom, white man slave, white man's dog, race traitor, self-hater, Sambo, Oreo, you name it, we've been called it, okay? Skinhead.
We've even been called white supremacists.
Make that make sense. I actually filmed a video, and Anthony
I'm
is
not a white supremacist, maybe a skinhead, but who knows? Sorry. You gave me too much room for that. If you are going to hate racism as a whole, you have to hate it the way God does, and that's every inch of it. Because I can tell you, I'm biracial. My mother is Hispanic, my dad is Jamaican. My mother is fair-skinned, so she looks more like Morgan. My dad is the color of the television when it's off. So, in my house, I was told to do things God's way. But I can tell you, from a Puerto Rican standpoint, Puerto Ricans hate Cubans, Cubans hate Dominicans, Guatemalans hate Ecuadorians, Hondurans hate Peruvians, and almost every Hispanic culture spits on the race of Mexicans. That's how it works. You've got Chinese that will fight you to the death if you call them a Japanese person by mistake, or a Korean, a Chinese person, which it's hard sometimes to not get it wrong. And don't you dare call an Italian a Sicilian. You have to hate racism in its entirety. And everything that you're seeing right now from a standpoint of this is how the world is and this, it's an agenda. Meaning that people are pulling strings, they're doing things behind closed doors to get you guys to become a generation that hates America, because I can tell you one thing, that if government is creating all of these problems, they're doing it intentionally, because if there's a problem there, then there has to be somebody that has the solution. When COVID broke out, what happened? Who had the solution? Government did. And what was the solution? Here's the vaccine.
Lockdowns.
And then lockdowns. 2 weeks to slow the spread. 7 months later, here we are. You know, and so what happened was that people that took a stand, because people were reaching far outside of constitutional privilege, were now told, you can't go grocery shopping. You can't feed your family unless you can prove to me that you're not going to be a super spreader. And then come to find out, all the people that got vaccinated were getting sick. It is right in front of you. It is right there in plain sight, and these people on the left, these liberals, these lying sons of mothers, goodness gracious, makes you want to cuss and I can't. They're doing things in broad daylight. And there is somebody who was a former KGB agent that listed the entire list of how somebody, when they want to do a complete and utter takeover of a country, how they do it, and it's in 4 steps. It's they demoralize the nation, then they destabilize the nation, then they create a crisis and cause a rebellion, and then they normalize everything. Now, when it comes to destabilization, he says they always go to 4 areas first. So the communists, whenever they came into any place, the first place they would always go without fail was the church. Because if you could attack the church and get the church to start speaking the government's message, then that was half of the battle there. And he said that when you do that, it led to death wishes. Because if you can't, as an individual, even turn to faith for some sort of solace and some type of comfort and peace at the end of the night, the only thing you wish for at the end of the day is to die, to be taken out of all of your misery. Then he says the next thing that they attack is education, through permissiveness and relativity. Now, if those, everyone knows what permissiveness is, and anything you want to do says and goes. And you're starting to see situations that happened in Virginia where that one kid who identified as a trans girl went and raped that 14-year-old girl in the bathroom. And then instead of dealing with it criminally, like they should have, they just expelled him because it was just a really bad day. He had a really bad day. He was wrong to express himself, or herself, whatever they were. And then so they expelled him, sent him to another school, and then the exact same thing happened. And you have all these people now that are against guns. Now trans people are saying trans rights or else, threatening people with violence. I'm like, bring it on. Your side doesn't even like guns. You don't even own guns. I was like, you shoot rubber bands. I was like, I'll take you on any time of the day. And then he says it's relativity, and relativity means that it's facts built on no foundation, meaning that they're not backed up by science, they're not backed up by faith, they're all fictional, because in the moment, if this feels right and seems right, this is what we're going to go with. Then the next thing he says that they go to is culture. And he says they do that through addictive fads and through fake celebrities and everybody else, which is why you see people like Lizzo, people like LeBron James that are making all these virtue signaling for black communities, but yet Lizzo was on stage at the VMAs playing Thomas Jefferson's flute, who was a slave owner way back when. And I'm like, make it make sense.
She's definitely very oppressed, if you couldn't tell.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, $30 million later. And then he says in destabilization, what they do, the destabilization process takes 2 to 6 months to fulfill. And if it's unchallenged, it will be ingrained successfully, and there will be nothing that anyone can do to change it. What took 2 to 6 months while we were trying to figure out what the heck was going on in 2020? COVID. And then the time of COVID, if it didn't trigger anybody that the people that were telling y'all, you can't go to school, you can't go to your grocery stores, you can't even see your family members, how many people were isolated and left alone to die without their family when they really needed them the most? And then you see all of these people that put those rules in motion on yachts with no masks, at all of these parties everywhere with all of their friends, and then when they got caught, they were just like, oh, well, and then they run and they hide from the press. Then he says they cause a rebellion and create a crisis. They create a problem so that in the end, you have to rely on them solely to be the purveyors, the providers, and the solution givers to all the problems that are there. And then they cause a rebellion, which is why you see the trans movement getting so wild right now, the LGBTQ community getting so wild right now, the black community getting so wild and unruly right now, all of these other communities, because they've ingrained it in there that if they can cause unsettlement in all of these places, then eventually it'll destroy itself so that government seems as the caped heroes that rush in to solve everything. And then he says the last step is normalization. When you are so used to hearing about it, you are so used to seeing it that now it's normal to you. And I can tell you what, a dude wearing a skirt will never be normal to me. A chick that wants to wear a suit, whatever, but I mean like a chick that wants to now emasculate, she wants to cut her body up to pieces, which is irreversible, and now live a life with regret and all these medical conditions. That'll never be normal to me. Telling somebody and offering them solution after solution to get rid of an innocent life, no matter what the circumstances are, is not normal to me. Why is it normal now, and you hearing it so many times that when you hear the word abortion now, it doesn't even make you cringe? You're just like, that's how much it's been. And so here what we're seeing now is the advancement of big government trying to stretch out and take away the sacred thing that you have to fight for every day, and that's your freedom. Your freedom is a fragile thing that if it's not fought for today, it'll be gone tomorrow. Because all of the handouts that government is giving you comes with strings attached. And we want you guys to know that where you are, we stand with you. We're not here to have you guys fawn over us and the work that we're doing. We're here to tell you that where you're at right now, keep fighting. Keep standing up. Keep being people of valor and character, because that is a race of people that's dwindling. There's nobody that lives with conviction anymore. Nobody that works in character anymore. And your character isn't what people see. It's what you are when nobody's looking. So make sure in your private time, you're putting your heart before the Lord every single day. You're asking God, where is it that you're working? What are you doing in these areas so that I can join you in what you're doing? Because God is the immovable object and he's the unstoppable force. And when you're on the side of somebody that can't be moved and can't be stopped, I'll take that any day, even if that means I got to stand by myself. And so this is a journey that we are on together, and it is only by doing it together, by doing your part individually, that we are going to win and take back our country the real way. And it's not this red wave that everyone keeps talking about, because the red wave that really made a difference was shed on Calvary 2,000 years ago. And with that, we would like to open it up for questions now from y'all. I thought you were leaving. I don't know where you were going.
If any of y'all have any questions, we will answer all of them. Any questions?
Hi, we can't hear you. That was loud. Thank you.
Okay, so my question is, when you're sharing or defending your side of an argument or your beliefs, how do you know your limits in the conversation and when to pull back?
Ooh, I'm gonna take this one, because that was what I didn't get to, was how to have good conversations, especially when it's with someone who disagrees. So I kind of have a method to the madness, and when to pull back. That's a really great question, so thank you for asking. Number one, always ask questions and know that you're never gonna be an expert on every single issue. I'm not an expert on every issue, Steven's not an expert on every issue, Anthony isn't either. But do your research, because as long as you have facts and data to back up your claims, you're in the green. But ask the other person questions before you get to that point, because if you can get them to keep going, it's the why method. Steven talks about this. Why do you ask that? Why do you believe that? Why are you doing this? Because if you just ask why, most of the time they'll continue to dig themselves in a hole, and then you can be like, well, this is what I believe, and here's why I believe what I believe. Because if you are backed by your facts and the truth, the absolute truth, then you'll be golden. But so number one is, well, I guess, do research. Number two, ask questions. And number three, know that it's okay to leave a conversation. You know, if it gets to a point and you know that they're just going to continue to berate you and disagree with you, and it's more of just an argument at that point, say, look, I can respect that, but here's the truth. And just leave. Like, that's it. But know that, you know, you're not going to make friends out of every single person. Not everyone's going to change their mind. But the point isn't to change their mind in that moment. Wow, I can't talk.
Moment.
In that moment. But the goal is to plant a seed. Because you might say one thing that gets their brain thinking, and they're like, ooh, I'm going to go home and look that up. Ooh, I'm going to ask my friend about this. What do they believe in this? And if you can just plant that one seed that gets somebody to keep thinking about it, or come back to them, you know, pray for your friends. I pray all the time for my friends to come to God. I also pray to my friends all the time that they can see the culture that they've been lied to. And so if you can just continuously plant those little seeds with your friends, your family, your peers, and be respectful in a conversation and keep in your cool, and you just know, hey, this is the fact, this is the truth, then you're good.
Real quick, I just want to add to that. When you're debating someone, understand that you are not debating them. Like, if you're in a crowd of people and you're debating someone, you're not debating them. You're debating everyone else, right? You probably won't change their mind, right? Whoever you're talking to, you probably won't. That's the nature of the beast, right? But everyone else who's listening, you're talking to them. So when you're making your facts, you're making your stats, you're giving your stats and your data, and you're making your point, make sure that what you're saying is clear and concise, and make sure that when you're attacking their argument, that you're making it so that everyone else can understand what it is that you're saying, and be clear and concise, and as she said, well, here's something I need to work on myself, because I'm kind of a bull in a china shop. And I get very passionate.
He doesn't
about
keep
things.
us cool.
Yes.
He didn't listen to rule number 3.
I definitely didn't listen to that. So make sure you do exactly that, because when you get emotional, you lose.
But when you see this guy become that bull in a china shop, nothing is safe. I don't even feel safe. But to add to that, I'm just going to keep it quick. 1 Peter 3:15, always be ready to give an answer for this hope that you have, but do it with gentleness and respect. We have hope. What we do works. It's proven. It can't do that. So why do you need to lose your cool when you're trying to convince somebody of that? What you need to do in situations like that, because a big thing when it comes to debate, argument, dialogue, discussion, is that people, when they're trying to make a point on one thing, cycle when they lose on that and they go to someplace else. We were talking to somebody, remember, he's like, you think trans people should exist? And I was like, well, they do exist, bro. I said, trans have been around before you were even born. They were just called something different back then. And I was just like, and he was like, so what about genocide? I was like, no, let's bring it back to transgenderists, because you made this claim. You asked me about this. You always got to bring it back to the initial point. You can, go down and chase the rabbit holes at another time, and it's always important for you and anybody else here that when you're having conversations with people, keep it on point. Always be the one to stop and listen, because you can't argue if you don't hear what's being said. You can't combat with things that make sense if you're not listening, and always bring it back to the point. So there you go.
Sorry, I did not mean to grab the microphone. Anyway, good evening. I am an aspiring conservative children's author, and I pretty much tell this to every conservative up on stage. But I was just wondering what advice you have for writing to children in a conservative manner about Christian and conservative values.
Brother, keep writing. I was like, look at the book of Psalms. That's 150 chapters of one man who sang his heart out when he was upset, when he was mad, when he was angry, when he was disappointed, when he was frustrated, when he was getting attacked, when he was feeling clueless. The Psalms are a list of songs of David being happy, being all of those things, and he wrote it to God, and we use those now as inspiration. And right now, the market's hot for young creatives like yourself, because creativity is a fleeting thing. Hollywood ain't got it. I was like, the music industry ain't got it. They find fancy ways to tell you how to do everything wrong, but in the end, all they're doing is repeating the same thing. So you've got a lot of parents now that are wanting outlets, especially for all these people that are taking up homesteading and homeschooling. I was like, because, the future of the country literally lives or dies there, which is why the left comes and attacks families so hard, Because when they can take the protector out of the house and move the nurturer out of the way, they've got an innocent person that'll take them at any word and then they can shape them into what they have. So you are a necessity right now, and keep honing your skills. Because as a writer myself, we're all writers up here with the jobs that we have to do. It's something that every single day with changing times and different opinions and views, you have to still be working on it. But you've got the best author on your side, man. You've got God. You pray and you ask him for inspiration, and then he'll open the door to get it out there so that the right people that can use it will do something with it.
Keep writing. I mean, if you look, every single industry has been infiltrated by leftist woke ideologies. We have children's TV now, YouTube Kids is now just gender everything all over the place on YouTube. So just as kind of what we're doing and talking to high school, we need people like you to go out there and infiltrate the books in the libraries, because how many middle schools have books that aren't even appropriate for middle schoolers, and they're going actually against what American ideology should be. You know, made in America. Well, why don't we keep it made in America? And every single one of you in this room, whatever you're studying, whatever your passion is, whatever you're doing, utilize that to talk about God and your country. And that's what you should do. If it's a YouTube channel, talk about God and your country. If it's a book, talk about God and your country. If you want to be a filmmaker, then do that. But everything that you do, know that it all ties back to loving God and your country. So keep doing what you're doing.
Real quick, we need you, dude. We need you. So please do exactly that. We need that.
My question is, if we don't make like a firm stand now with like our faith and the stuff about Made in America, like how much harder do you think it will be for our kids and their kids to make a stand and try to have an impact in something?
Oh, Steven, you can take this one, because if y'all don't know, there's a baby Hulk coming.
There is.
Definitely do it for the kids. Obviously, definitely do it for the kids. But one issue that I have is our lack of response when it comes to the ideologies of the left and when it comes to evil in general. During the 60s and 70s, during the sexual revolution, we did nothing. We stood by idly and let the world absolutely go to crap, right? We let people get into their licentiousness, hedonism. It was all about pleasure, and to this day, it's still, you're seeing the lasting effects, right? And you're seeing all the, everything was birthed out of that moment, out of that period, that time period during the 60s and 70s. It was a whole revolution, cultural revolution within the United States of America. And it's important to understand what happens when we just stand back and we worry about tax cuts and tax breaks instead of focusing on the culture. Now, it is important and incumbent on us to really focus on that at this point in time, because we see what happened. Generationally, goodness gracious, I can't talk right now. Generationally, we are falling apart at the seams, right? When I was growing up, the CRT wasn't that big of a deal. I graduated high school in 2002, right? So at that point in time, I didn't really see the gender ideology. I didn't really see a huge rise in homosexuality. I didn't see the issues that are going on right now. Now, all it took was, 20 years? 20 years, right? A generation. That's all it took for everything to go to crap. So it's incumbent on us at this point in time to say, hey, we can't let this happen anymore. We can't let another generation go by where we're just sitting back idly twiddling our thumbs, okay? So it's important, it's vitally important, not only when it comes to our country, but when it comes to our children, when it comes to my daggone offspring. You better believe I'm going to be fighting for them, and it's incumbent on you as well to make this stand right now.
And one thing I'll add to that is that there's no answers in us as humans. There's no answers in the government. We don't have a political problem right now. We got a spiritual one. Go to the Bible. It says the earth is the Lord's and everything in it. All those ideas that you have springing in you, those dreams and aspirations that you want, you didn't get those on your own. God planted that in you because that's where he's calling you. And it's only by following him that you actually walk and live out in your purpose. Stephen touched on that. You have less people walking in their purpose now and more where they're being propelled because it goes against, it gets a little uncomfortable to fight against the stream. But when you look at Scripture, because I reference that a lot, why not? I mean, like, God never got it wrong, you know? There was a king called Hezekiah, who a prophet came to him and said that if you don't repent, calamity is going to come on your household. And his response was, well, at least I won't be alive to see it. And it says that Israel, for 60 years after that, faced the hardest oppression of their life until they repented and God rescued them. We're at a pivotal place right now in the United States of America where we were a nation started under God's statutes. And we're slowly removing them in every place that we can because we feel like we have better answers. But the Bible also says that wide is the gate and broad is the road that leads to destruction, and many are on it, meaning that they're making the choice. But you have to take the Joshua stance, that as for me and my house, we're going to serve the Lord. And it says that broad, tiny is the gate, and short and narrow is the road that leads to life, and very few find it. So there's action on your part. You've got to look for it. And the only way that you find that is by searching God, because in James he says, if you draw near to me, I'm going to draw near to you. And then he guides you the rest of the way. That's how you stay faithful in that.
If you don't do it, no one else is going to do it for you, because if you have that attitude of like, well, they've got the best interest in heart for the next generation, well, that best interest is the public education system. That best interest is our current government, and that is not our best interest. That is anti-American. And so that's why we have to take a stand and do something about it, is because our future kids is what matter, and their kids matter. And if we don't, that's how you get to socialism, is government control, and socialism leads to communism. I could tell you hundreds of students on college campuses who actually believe in the Communist Manifesto, and they think it's a good idea. And that is what they're being pushed through in even upper education in college. I mean, Charlie says it, college is a scam. And it kind of is. I took a gender theory class my freshman year of college. What did that have to do with engineering? And so this is why we talk about indoctrination happening from day one, because it happens on social media. If you don't monitor your future kids' social media, you don't know what they're watching. And so that is why we have to take firm stances, is because if we don't do it, no one's going to do it for us. They're actually going to do the opposite.
I actually got two questions. So the first one, it was said before that to be a good woman, it was found in Proverbs 31. Do you know any scripture that says how to be a good man, basically?
Yes. Psalms 119, how can a young man keep his ways pure? By living according to your word. It's that simple. The only way to be a good person in any stance is to do things God's way. And you have a whole plethora of examples. Stephen made an example of Samson, someone who from birth was called to deliver Israel, but because he was thinking with the wrong body part, he ended up causing more harm to himself and put Israel in a setback until at the very end he said, God, give me strength one more time, and needed to rely on him. You've got Joseph, a guy who was Me Too'd. He was #Me Too'd by Potiphar's wife and falsely imprisoned and put in jail for 13 years. But even in that, it said that God was with him and he gave him favor. You've got David, who was promised kingship and for 13 years ran from Saul. You know, you've got Daniel, who was in the heart of what we would call America today and all of this culture that we're faced in, but it said God gave him and his 4 friends favor because they honored him. That is how you become a good man. You honor God first, and you put him above everything. And when you do that, when you are at the place where you can surrender and say, like, God, my money ain't mine, this car ain't mine, this house ain't mine, these classes ain't mine, all of this functions because you're allowing me to live, and you completely surrender in him. Jesus himself said it in John. He said, apart from me, you can do nothing. So just because there's nothing specifically said that men are supposed to do this, a true man puts himself second and God first. That is how you become a good man and a good leader here, by taking the back seat of control and giving it to the one who knows your end from your beginning.
You're a little young, but also Ephesians 5 and 6 for how to love your wife, and men how to love your wife. It's that too.
You got a second question?
That's all. He said it all. So, yeah. Next question.
You said if freedom isn't fought for today, it'll be gone tomorrow. Can you expound upon that?
Well, look at what happened. If you don't take a stand for your freedom, look at what happened during the pandemic. Classic example. You had so many people that injected themselves with an experimental drug that had lasting effects on them because they were told that if they don't do this, like I said, you can't go visit your family, you can't go shopping, you can't go to the stores, you can't do this unless you can prove that. and then come to find out that the vaccine really didn't do anything, but that was a freedom that people sacrificed to then get access to life again, which really wasn't life because it was so heavily monitored to the point where they even made your family and your friends spy on you to report you to the government. You know, we're starting to see now with all of these legislative bills and whatnot, you know, we're not, like in America, you have your 5 freedoms in the First Amendment. You know what your 5 are? Your freedom of speech, freedom of religion, freedom of press, freedom of assembly, and the most important one that I feel like we don't use enough, the freedom to petition your officials. We are a republic, like I said, so everything that happens in Washington should not be happening if we aren't saying it. And Stephen has said this a lot of times. If we're the silent majority, when the doggone heck are we going to be the loud majority? When are we going to finally take a stand against all 535 people right now are ruining America because they feel like they're unscathed because they control bills that put more money in other places rather than here to make us more self-independent than reliant on all these other places right now. You saw it right now. We're tanking everything right now because of everything that we're giving to Ukraine. Now, granted, I got brothers and sisters that I'm really good friends with that live in Ukraine that have been affected by that. And even though I don't wish war, that's not my problem as an American. And by them funding that, just because we have the ability to print more money doesn't make it valuable. It actually starts to take away from the value. And we're pumping so much money over them for the things that we don't have here. We gave money willingly with liberals standing and applauding for border security, for arms to defend themselves, and to stabilize their economy when we have an open border, a crisis at the border, a lot of illegals pouring in here every day that they flood into all of these major cities and put on government health benefits that you end up paying for in your taxes, you know, and all of this other stuff that they are slowly taking away from us in the name of like, well, it's just fair. It's the right thing to do as an American. I'm like, that's where I disagree. That's just one example.
I mean, take a look at social media, too. If you look at censorship, that's one of the huge issues that every single one of us are affected by, is you see conservatives consistently being banned or just being silenced for their voices, tweets deleted, but you don't see that happening as much on the other side. And so I think that is the first step. We have the freedom of speech in the First Amendment, yet that is what they want to control, because if they can destabilize Western civilization and take away our freedom of speech, then what else do we have? Because I truly believe that the First Amendment, with that our freedom of speech, is the #1 freedom that they are trying to take away every single day. You can't even stand up in a classroom now at public school and say, well, women are women because they have XX chromosomes. And if you say that, you're completely ostracized by your peers because they want to instill fear in you. So when they're destabilizing our freedom, it all starts from how do we control our audience, instill fear in the American people to then control them. And that's how it's going to happen. And so that is why, again, we just have to keep standing up. And when we recognize that our freedom is at fault, like, yeah, we could live in a not free America tomorrow if we don't continue to fight back.
Here's what I'll say. At the end of the day, if we don't preserve, yes, our First Amendment, but what do we need to preserve that First Amendment? Our second, okay? The right to bear arms. If we lose that, I guarantee you, if we lose the right to bear arms, America will fall. We have no way to protect ourselves, not only from a tyrannical government, but from any outside entity that wants to impose their will on us, right? So I think that's another example. I mean, all these different examples are examples of how America can fall, and quickly, right? I think COVID was the ultimate experiment to see how compliant we are going to be when it comes to what it is that we're going to. They had a hotline to rat on your fellow man if he had more than so many people in their house. Mayor Garcetti in Los Angeles was threatening to turn off people's water and electricity if they had a party, okay? This is how tyrannical our government can get, and it can get there really quickly if we don't pay attention, if we don't stand and fight for our rights and our freedoms.
Hi. At first, I just want to say congratulations, Stephen, or Mr. Davis. My teachers might give me for that. But my question is, what are some hot-button political words or phrases for you, or like something that triggers you to talk about any topic or whatever, and how do you handle it?
What are you at? The question is, what are triggers and things for us?
Nothing.
Yeah, nothing.
You could ask me anything.
We all three, the reason I love being with these people so much is because, trust me, there's nothing worse than a soggy conservative. It's like getting that fry out the McDonald's thing, and it's just so sad looking. You don't even want to eat it. You just like throw it away. You know, more people cause more harm when they just get in the way and they don't do nothing, rather than having people up here that will do. We can talk about anything. There are things that get me upset. Like when I hear how grown people don't see anything wrong with drag queens shaking their genitalia. Yeah, see what I did? See, bull in the China shop. Bull in the China shop. Down, boy, down, boy. When people hear about that and like there's no problem with it. But, you know, when you look at scripture, when people did that, it was right before they sacrificed young kids like that and threw them in the fire, you know, to Baal and to, you know, all the Asherah poles and everything else like that. We're seeing right now kids being offered as sacrifices to culture and being exposed so early with feeble minds that haven't even developed yet to be told what they can or can't do on their own. And so those are things that get me upset. I get upset I'm an Olympian. I'm an athlete. I have competed with women, real ones, that literally lift like a man, you know, and I'm around them when they're sweating, grunting, burping, and everything else, and they don't look ladylike when they're in the gym. But I mean, like, in the end, they're women that, you know, like, when they get all dolled up and pretty, I'm just like, oh, wow, you look normal, you know? And so I get upset now who a field of men that can't cut it in the realm that I came from now want to invade on a space that's already not really watched as much, with women that have to fight against the big grain of society to be seen as an equal in these fields, now having their opportunities taken away just because people feel like a woman. And I don't care what Aretha Franklin said. I was like, you can make her feel like a natural woman, but you are ugly. You are a man, and I don't care what anybody says or anything else like that. Those are topics that get me. I'm a single boy with 3 sisters. So I grew up in a predominantly female house, you know, so I would hate it if I ever knew that my sisters, as a brother who loves them and cares for them and wants their safety, were in places where men could hurt them. And you don't see women trying to get big by going into men's sports. It's all of these men that can't cut it that now want an easier way to attack the vulnerable, like Stephen said. Attack the vulnerable, attack the people that are by themselves that can't defend themselves. So those are hot topics to me that literally make my blood boil. But it's not a conversation that I'll never not have with somebody, because if I'm that passionate about it, you have to make your voice heard on that.
I agree. There's nothing that triggers me or nothing that makes me so upset that I'll never talk about it, because then that's totally not a get with the point. The point is I am so angry about this, and this does trigger me, so I'm going to talk about it. And those issues are, 1, protecting womanhood, and 2, protecting our future generation that is currently being killed because it's genocide that is legal in America. And that's the problem is, you know, how can I educate the future generation if they're not even being born, if they're being taken advantage of? And that's, again, the lie that's being sold to women. And I think really that the generation that's being attacked right now is not only that are men being told that they're too manly and masculinity is toxic, it's not. Feminism is toxic, not masculinity. There is no toxic masculinity. Men need to embrace their masculinity just as much as women need to embrace their femininity. And with that, that is the strongest argument that we have to push forward for the future. So that's what makes my blood boil, is when they try and disable that and tell you that you can be whatever you want. Gender is fluid. Men can be women. Like, that's a lie. It's a lie. And that's the number 1 attack on America, is attacking the nuclear family. So how are they doing that? Men can't be men, women can't be women, and let's kill our entire next generation through abortion. That's genocide. So that makes my blood boil, because that is, I think, the root of everything.
All right, Bull. Destroy the China shop.
It's simple. Leave the kids alone, okay? It's just that simple, okay? Whether it's abortion or the sexualization of children, leave the kids alone. Right? And this is something that really upsets me within the black community is, you know, oh, black power, oh yeah, black power, but you're supporting abortion en masse. How you gonna claim black power when you're killing the very power needed to bolster black power? It doesn't make any sense. It literally doesn't make any sense. When in New York City, if you see a pregnant black woman, she's more than likely going to kill that child than birth it. I have a problem with that, okay? When it comes to sexualization of children, this is when we had that conversation with that idiot.
That they, them,
Yeah.
whatever.
And this guy had the nerve, the audacity, and the gall to sit there and stand for the sexualization of children. And I asked him straight up, so you're cool. Let's make this clear. You're cool with drag queens and people who claim to be transgender. You're cool with them shaking their bonbons, right, in front of a daggone child. Sure. That's when you know your culture has fallen down the tube, right? It's gone down the toilet. When people won't even stand for something, for kids who are vulnerable children, that's a problem. And it gets my blood boiling, because how are you going to call yourself a daggone man and you're not going to stand for children? You're not going to stand for the vulnerable. You're not going to stand for the innocent. How much more innocent is the life of a child that's within the daggone womb? How more innocent is that? That's innocent blood. God says he does not appreciate, he hates hands that shed innocent blood. How much more innocent is that? So for me, ooh, that gets my blood boiling, Lord.
And that's literally how that conversation went.
Yes, it did. With that, I'll calm down.
My question is, if you guys have ever had like family criticize you, did you take that criticism differently versus when it's just like a random stranger?
Absolutely. I haven't seen my cousins in 6 years because they wouldn't let me see them because I refused to get a jab. And absolutely, I have had people in my family, not immediate family, but kind of extended family, comment bad things about me, share posts that I had in their other family group chats and talk bad, but at the end of the day, I know that I'm sharing the truth for the hundreds of thousands of people. And the message that we're sharing with you guys today, you guys are going to take this and continue to share it with others, and it's that ripple effect. So I see the importance on it. But absolutely, when it comes from someone that you don't know, I can laugh at it. I'll see a hate comment, and it's funny, and it's like, oh, just another, like, oh, there's another one. But when it's someone in your family, it just hurts so much more. Absolutely. There's no denying that. But one thing that we have to do is just stay rooted in the truth and know that what we're doing and what we're saying is the truth. And know that, you know, that they can come around. It's not the end of the day. You know, people are going to have their opinions. Everyone's free to have their own opinions about what we may say. But at the end of the day, like, yeah, it does hurt. And but it's okay, you know. And those are the people that we need to pray for. Those people we need to talk to and, you know, have a gentler approach. I think the whole don't have conversations like this at the dinner table is ridiculous, because that's where we need to have those conversations. And even if it is someone that we disagree with, just continue to empower them, you know, like, hey, here's a video I found. Here's an article I found. And you never know. Because, again, it's seed planting. And you never know what they may come around.
Yeah, I mean, I can't say that my family really turned their back on me. I have a brother who their family, they don't really talk to me as much anymore since I've become political, and it sucks. It does. It hurts because this is family. Now, he did make it clear that anything that I want to, you know, do with my life, or you know, even when it comes to the realm of politics, he has my back. He's going to support me because he's my brother. But at the same time, all of a sudden the communication is not really there anymore. All of a sudden your nephews don't really want to talk to me anymore. All of a sudden all these different issues, and now there's radio silence, right? It sucks, especially when it comes to the black community, because we are expected to toe the line. We're supposed to walk the line, right? And when you don't walk the line, you're called all the different names, as we talked about earlier. So it does suck, but at the end of the day, we still have to stand on the courage of our convictions. And like you said, it's all about seed planting. That's what it's all about at the end of the day. We know that we stand on truth, and we can definitely defend ourselves because we have the truth on our side. So it's going to suck. It's going to hurt. It really is. But you just have to continue to stand tall, and you never know. You may be the very reason why they come around. They're going to trust you before they trust MSNBC and CNN. Of course, they're going to clown you and say, "Oh, I heard here and heard there," but they're going to listen to you because you're family. Okay, so keep standing, keep on keeping on. You got this.
Do you think colleges play a big part in creating left-wing youth, and how do we stop it from happening?
What are you looking at me for?
I went to college and don't anymore.
So I do believe that they do play a heavy part in left-leaning ideologies, and the way that you combat them is literally like this. Your little nucleus of truth. And evil always makes itself bigger than what it seems to be, but in the end, it's been historically and spiritually proven that it always falls apart. Because two things always test the valor of somebody and what they say, and it's the passing of time and when troubles come. And people who have stood for the truth are always left standing when the dust clears and the rubble is all around, and everyone, that's when they're going to look to you. So what you see happening at colleges now, you have conservative students that we've all interacted with that have said, my professor's failing me because he wants me to write a research paper from the perspective of Al-Qaeda and why they're the good guys. And maybe no one really thought about what it's like from their perspective. And I'm sorry, but anyone that chants death to America, they got to come see me to catch this fade, you know? It's just what it is. You know, the same thing with them, you know, getting marked down and ostracized by their peers and by faculty and by staff just for existing and acknowledging Turning Point. So you have a lot of people that are trying to squelch truth, but you can run from truth, you can bury truth, you can hide from it, you can rename it, but truth will never go away. And when you walk knowing that no matter what happens, no matter what professor is trying to fail you, God's got your back. Because God takes it very seriously, the protection of his children. And so serious that when God steps in and starts disciplining them, you actually feel sorry for them. You're like, whoa, like, hold up. Oh my gosh, did you see what's happening? But that's the heart that God instills in people. That's why he says vengeance is mine, because ain't nobody do it better than him. But as far as college campuses, they're a battleground, and that's why you got to be seasoned for war. You got to be so ready to fight, so used to fighting, so comfortable fighting, so happy when a fight breaks out that when it's time to go to war, people are hitting your line because they need you to fight with them. They don't need you don't want to be the person that they call to be like, listen, could you just stay home today? Like, you know, when everything is over, then maybe we'll reach back out to you again. You know, like, you got to stand up, like Stephen and Morgan always say. It's like, stand up, know your facts, know where you're coming from, do what you have to do in those situations first as an individual, and then join a group that now makes a big move together.
Colleges are under attack. Like, there is no doubt about that. You're paying money to a school so you can be educated, but your education isn't actually education. And I think Common Core education in the public schools was the biggest downfall for high school and middle schoolers, because they're not actually teaching math, science, history, and English, what you should be learning. And it's the same principle being taught in in colleges and upper education. You have to take those basic level intro classes that have nothing to do with what you actually want to do in the future, to where, you know, you're having to take a gender class, you're having to take a women's studies class, you're having to take the history of African Americans instead of U.S. history. I actually have met students who have never taken a U.S. history class, and they can pick which history they want to learn. It's very interesting. And so, absolutely, you're paying money to higher education, and what do we need to do? Continue doing this. I also think, you know, if you actually want to do something with your life, go to a trade school. Go to a trade school. And why aren't we normalizing that? Why aren't we normalizing actually going and doing the jobs that, one, are going to make you more money, and two, skip the indoctrination? Because I have seen now more than ever that universities, their professors don't actually show what their students are. I went to a very conservative school where 70% of the students were conservative, yet 70% of the educators were liberal. And that's concerning. I've traveled to college campuses and watched teachers actually protest against our events, actively have petitions for their students to sign them, to have Turning Point chapters kicked off of their college campuses. And these are college campuses, it's not high school. And so absolutely, the universities, they are not what they used to be. They're not education systems. Instead, they're indoctrination systems. And they're just trying to pump out as many worker bees as they can to climb that corporate ladder and live an unsuccessful life. And that's what they want, is they're selling that continuous lie of unhappiness.
Look, you got to understand, if you're going to go into a college or university, you are going into a commie camp, okay? That's what you're going into, a commie camp, right? There's a bunch of indoctrination, as they got to talking about. As a matter of fact, what university were we at where that, it was a Christian university, right? That Christian university where that lady was espousing the virtues of transgenderism, Christian.
We were at,
University.
Whitworth
Yes.
University in Washington.
In Washington. She was espousing the virtues of transgenderism, talking about abortion.
It's healthcare.
Yeah, abortion is healthcare. You know, the usual tropes. So even when it comes to these quote-unquote Christian colleges, they're full of indoctrinators as well. So you really have to put on the full armor of God when you go to one of these places. You really do. Because the lies are all over the place, and they sound good. They sound enticing, just like with Adam and Eve, right? The serpent. Look at the fruit. It's good to eat. Partake. Don't you want to be as gods? And that's the mentality on at these college campuses. You really have to make sure that you are on point when you go there, and surround yourself with a bunch of like-minded individuals who are going to keep you on point. Right? If you're going to go there, you have to stay on point. And I tell you what, you're going to be behind enemy lines, but you're going to be a freaking commando when it comes to standing up for the daggone truth. That's what we're supposed to do. We're supposed to be a light shining on the daggone hill. So when you go there, if you decide to go there, if you don't want to go the trade school route and want to go to the college or university, you make sure you're that light shining on the hill so that everyone's looking at you like, wow, she is indeed different.
Okay, I got two questions. My first one is, as a man, how do you face adversity? And my second one is, how do you recognize and receive help from God?
Well, when adversity comes your way, because it's gonna come your way, right? But the Bible says to endure hardship, right? And you got to understand that, especially as a man, they're going to attack you every which way they can because you're the foundation. Okay, you are the leader, but you just got to dig your heels in deep. You have to dig your heels in deep, especially when it comes to the truth and when it comes to the Word of God. You know, they say Bible, basic instructions before leaving earth, right? If you have that in your mind and you stand upon the Word of God, you cannot fall. You cannot. If you don't, if you go by on your own ideologies, your own wisdom, quote unquote, do the Samson route, it's easy to fall. So you have to stay upon the Word of God. And what was that second question? My bad.
How do you recognize and receive help from God?
Oh, just keep going to Him. As a flawed,
simply put,
yeah, we're flawed human beings. We're flawed. You know what I'm saying? So as a flawed, and that's we got to understand that pride goes before destruction and a haughty spirit before a fall. Okay. So when it comes to what it is that we stand on, we have to stand on God. We have to seek His wisdom, right? His will for our life, not our own. Because as soon as we start relying on our own ideologies, we start getting into secular humanism. We start getting all these weird ideologies in which you now believe that you're a woman, okay? So you have to stand upon the Word of God. If you stand upon the Word of God, I cannot stress this enough because I tried to do it myself. I tried to do it my own daggone way, especially when I was a liberal, right? Yeah, I grew up in the church and all that, but at the end of the day, I was doing it my way, and I kept finding myself in trouble again and again. And it's not to say that when you're living your life as a Christian, as a real Christian, that you won't face trouble. But when you face trouble with God on your side as opposed to God without, that's a big difference, okay? So you got to have God on your side, and when you go through this trouble, when you go through this life, make sure that you let Him order your steps and not you order your own.
Thank you.
I don't know if we have time for more questions, but I want to do something before we go and say goodnight. But we're going to hang out for a little bit, and we want to take some time to answer all the questions that didn't get to be asked. But I want to do something so special because you inspired me, man. Let me just say thank you. I love this man. I love this man in a totally heterosexual brotherly way. I love you too, Morgan.
Thanks, Anthony.
This country needs you. The America of 20 years ago is no longer the America that we're living in now. There is something that's happening. There are so many things that are changing right before our eyes, like I said today, that if they are not stood for, the nuclear family, making prayer acceptable, having dialogue. You can't even have conversations anymore. You know, the common things that you know as reality are literally being rewritten. But I can tell you what, it can take a different name, but that doesn't change what it is. This whole transgender issue that you had 25 years ago, it was called androgyny. Dudes that just wanted to dress in women's clothes. Then after that, it was called cross-dressing 10 years after that. Now it's this full-blown out agenda. So the name shifts, but the idea and the spirit behind it doesn't. But there is a special place for you that's already been pre-written in your existence before you even came to exist. And that's the story that God is currently filling out in your lives right now. So the same call that he gave me is the same call that I want to give for you, because there is a dismal, dark presence that is happening right now, and the only reason that it hasn't is because of the few that are faithful that want to see God actually do what he promised he was going to do. And that doesn't happen until you ask for it. And what we're asking for is the brave people that are out there, all of you students here, because you are not too young. Samuel was only 11 years old when God started speaking to him before he became the prophet that led Israel out of their issues, before they asked for a king. Things happen for a reason, because it either goes two ways. You either glorify and benefit from being obedient to God, or you have to see the consequences of choices that are made when you take him out of the picture. And right now, he has been blocked out of a lot of areas, but he goes every single place with you all that walk in the light of what he has said to you. So if there's anybody out there that wants to continue walking in the light and the truth for the right reasons, I want you to stand with me right now. You stand too. There's the call. Come on. Who's there? Who's there? That's right. Take a stand for your country. Take a stand for your faith. If you don't do it now in a place where we're proud of you to do that, you're going to fall apart in the world where they try to beat you down for it. And look around. Look around this room right now. All of these people that are standing with you are your allies. Not these allies that have been formed out of groups that literally have no existence, no stability, and no foundation. These are your allies. The ones that you don't know but share the same values and memoirs and all those kinds of things that they want to see out. These are the people that are going to fight for you when times get low. They're the ones that are going to pick you up when you're down. They're the ones that are going to march into war with you. They're the ones that are going to give you all the ammo that you need to keep you going, because you in turn will do the same for them. That's America right here. And all of you that made that commitment, that that's the country that you are willing to fight for, you need that reverence that our forefathers had, because they died in battle for a country that most of them didn't even get to see. But you're standing on the sacrifice of what they gave up for the dreams that are all alive in your hearts that God gave each and every single one of you. So we want to do something for you. I want to do something for you. I want to pray for you. And I want to make sure that you know that at the end of the day, no matter what you do, it can't work without God doing it with you. So, Lord, thank you so much for this day. Jesus, we bless these young people. We bless these families that have come out tonight. God, we thank you so much that no matter what has happened in history, your promise is that yesterday, today, and forever, that you are still the same. And I pray, God, that that fire that you've ignited in their hearts would turn into a wild blaze that would now start to change their classrooms, that would now start to amend bridges in their families, that would now set them apart and give them favor in the workforce. Everywhere that they go, God, that they would walk in victory, because your spirit is already there, that's gone ahead of them and is waiting for them to join you in the work that you are doing. America is your country. This world is yours. And I pray that tonight, for whoever reason or whatever reason it may be, if we've wandered away, that we would come back to you. That today would be the day of a new beginning for the America, for the life, and for the heart of our young people and our country. We bless them. We thank you for who you are and what you have always said you will do and what you have never failed to get done. In Jesus' name, amen. Thank you guys so much.
Unashamed.